I'm sorry, your fan base is crap. Greetings and salutations. I'm hoping this is going to be the first in a series of vlogs where I just talk about different issues that are occurring to me or things I've been researching, stuff I want to talk about. I had planned on doing a video about screen adaptation. I've been seeing a lot of stuff, especially in regards to the Spider-Verse movies and all that type of stuff. But something happened today. This has been coming for a long time. Let's talk about toxic masculinity and geek culture. Toxic masculinity is one of those, dare I say, topics that is often deliberately misconstrued. First thing off the top, masculinity is a good thing. So is femininity. Is also a good thing. Toxic masculinity is not masculinity. Let's just get that straight out of the bag. You probably already downvoted it, so you can probably, don't ignore this. You might actually learn a lesson. In traditional societal cultures, or at least the Western values, masculinity is seen as this really good thing. It's supposed to be embodying strength, boldness, courage, all those tropes you generally associate, especially in fiction, with like hero culture. The hero has to be bold, he has to be daring. He's the Schwarzeneggers, he's the Stallones, he's all these traits we imbue onto the archetypal hero. Just go back to like all the studies involving like Joseph Campbell and stuff like that. There is a theme. Even look at all our movies, all our video games, book, all those kind of things. There's always this kind of idea of a hero being the best among us. And of course, over time, we've taken a lot of that positive ideals and we've put that onto masculinity. Let's be brutally honest. The hero is saving the damsel in distress. He's always the big, strong hero. And of course, there's always subversions to that. Going back to Spider-Man, Steve Ditko drew him as a bit of a weakling. He was very skinny. The internal rationalization is that, of course, after he kind of started being a hero and he was doing more jumping and leaping and lifting heavy things, his muscles developed. It wasn't the Sam Raimi, oh, I just woke up and I'm strong trope. Again, that's an adaptation issue. We can discuss that later. Our society does tend to regard these things as positive traits. Toxic masculinity, on the other hand, is taking those traits and saying this is the only thing masculinity should be about. You have to suck it in, sunshine. You never express emotion, never cry, cut the tears, quit whining. It's funny how in media we look at these traits. They're usually put on the asshole dad or the abusive coach. But in society, we still regard those things as part of positive masculinity. If somebody says, if there's the coach, it's like, the big speech in the game, even in reality, is always, you gotta, tough it out, blah, 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 pull yourself up by your bootstraps. For heaven forbid, don't cry, don't express emotion. And this is where at least some of the meninists get it right. Being told to withhold it is a bad thing. Let's ignore the rest of the MRA bullshit for the moment. Let's say the meninists are right on this aspect, and this clip is probably going to be cut out of context at some point in the future. All because they are right about this one aspect doesn't mean they're right about every aspect. MRAs are still trying to subdue the rest of feminist theories, and you look at all these anti-SJW YouTube channels and all that. It's not about trying to say we've got a problem here and let's try and fix it. It's like we've got a problem here and it's your fault. It's not the feminist fault. It's not even the meninist fault. It's not anyone's fault. It's society norms, and we need to fix that. How does this express itself in geek culture? You've probably heard of a thing called Gamergate. Gamergate, there's plenty to be said about it. There's plenty has been said about it on both sides, but realistically speaking, Gamergate doesn't help men. It's targeted harassment of women. That's all it's ever been. And if it was about ethics in journalism, why aren't they attacking the journalists? Well, no, don't attack the journalists, but why aren't they attacking the ethics of the journalism? Why aren't they talking about how the gaming companies are, for lack of a better term, gaming the system? Why aren't they talking about that? No, it's all Zoe Quinn's fault. It's all Anita Sarkeesian's fault. and see which is where the problem lies. They're not looking at the source of the problems and trying to fix the source. They're looking at a person to blame, and they're choosing women. Fast forward a few years, because Gamergate's old, man. Most people know it's a fucking joke. The most toxic thing at the moment in Nerdsphere is quite possibly Comicsgate. I think it's toxic, more toxic because it's not really talked about outside of those spheres that kind of know about it. There's the people who support Comicsgate and there's people who don't support Comicsgate, which is, of course, natural. But nobody else really knows about it, realistically speaking. Comicsgate is about a bunch of people who believe there's an issue with comics media. But instead of trying to address those issues, they just attack women, minorities. It's all about how the SJWs are destroying comics. The comic book industry is probably the most stable it's been in about a decade. They always like to promote these stuff like, oh, Marvel's an SJW, look at all these movies they're doing with the Black Panther and all the politics, while ignoring the fact that the first comic of Captain America, he's literally punching out Adolf Hitler. Yes, that is a political statement, no matter how you try and dissect it. Captain America punching Hitler is a political statement. To say that comics have never had any politics to them is literally ignoring the last 80 years of comics, give or take. Comics are a pulp media. Let's be brutally honest here. Comics were never meant to be high art, at least initially. Let's not ignore talking about underground, that's always been its own thing. Comics are still very pulp trash. You can disagree with me if you want, it's still true. The great thing about pulp trash is that you can still talk about issues. Many pulp trashy science fiction novels talked about real issues. That's why you have issues like alien invasion. Aliens are essentially codified as the other. The other could be black people. It could be white people. It could be any race. It could be a minority. It could be sex. It could be gender. It could be anything. And you want to talk about those issues. Star Trek was lousy with political issue masquerading as a science fiction concept. And it's funny how people, even today, go, oh, these SJWs have ruined Star Trek. I'm sorry, Roddenberry was an SJW. Debate me. So if all these issues have always been present in comics, why has this suddenly become an issue? Well, Gamergate and such things have kind of emboldened people with not great narratives. Let's be brutally honest. We could easily point this to the Orange in Chief and say it's his fault because of all this shit. But let's face it, this kind of bullshit's been going on for a few years. I've been studying geek culture since at least 2012. I was trying to create a documentary. It wasn't strong, but it was there. And it's definitely building up. Gamergate is definitely a sign of that. Comicsgate is the current iteration of that. But that's also because whenever there's been a progressive movement, there's always going to be a pushback by traditionalists, conservatives, whatever you want to call them. There's always going to be a pushback. And basically, going back to the idea of slaves going, hey, we don't want to be slaves anymore. And someone going, no, you're still going to be our slave. That's how we've always done it. We've done it for a couple of hundred years. You're definitely going to be our slaves. The equal rights movements of the 50s and 60s and all sorts, people going, we demand our equal right. No taxation without representation. That was your slogan. Why can't it be ours? And some people don't want to. Some people are very happy with the status quo. Is that Freudian? Some people are happy with the status quo. Very much. I have no issue. Why should you have an issue? My life is great. Why can't your life be great? This is part of those really bad narratives that, people are fighting against. It's not as simple as like, hey, I'm doing well, you should be doing well. This is going into ideas of systemic injustice, which we won't go into because we're definitely wavering off topic. So toxic masculinity in the nerd culture. It's in abundance. Let's be brutally honest. We have so many white, cis, hetero, male figures in comics. The comics industry is lousy with them. Most of our superhero movies are about these figures. Which, you know what, that's cool, that's fine. I have no issue with that. I'm a white, cis, hetero male myself, so I can't complain. But we can't discount the other voices that go, well, you've got like 99.99999% of this representation, except for those token guys you threw in back in the 70s because blaxploitation was proven to be popular. Let's face it, as much as Stanley does talk about, progressiveness and stuff like that in the comics, it took him a long time to be able to add these things in there. That's not a slam on Stan. Rest in peace. Love you, man. Can you imagine Stanley in the 1940s saying, I want to make a black superhero? Yeah, not going to happen. Society wouldn't do it. The publishers certainly wouldn't do it. And you look at what happened to the Comics Code Authority. It screwed over a lot of people just because a fucking bastard decided, I'm going to make a book blaming every social ill on comic books. Yes, that's the thing. Just in this past year, we've had one of the biggest selling movies, especially one of the biggest selling superhero movies of all time, starred a predominantly black cast with a black lead actor and dealt with social issues. It was still the usual superhero trope because you have to have the superhero tropes, and people loved it. Except for these people who are now going, oh, these SJWs are ruining the comics industry, they're moving the movie industry. And are they really? Is having this movie with this black character really destroying the industry? This character's been around for how many, 30 odd years? Oh, he's the problem with the industry. No. People are seeing a bit of this backlash against these issues. And instead of learning, why are these things a problem? They're throwing them under the carpet saying, this isn't a problem. It's always been this way, so therefore it can't be a problem. Or, no, this doesn't gel with my views on the world. You're obviously wrong. And you know what? I was one of them. I had to be. This is the way the world works. While there wasn't necessarily a lot of anti-homophobia out there, it wasn't necessarily considered a good thing. So I was by default a homophobe. I did not like gay people back when I was younger. I thought the idea of homosexuality was icky. I had nothing against the gays. I just don't want them against me. I was wrong. And there's a way to prove that you're wrong. Meet people. Meet gay people. Meet lesbian people. Meet bi people. Meet non-gendered people. Talk to them like a human being. Oh yeah. Talk to women. I mean, literally don't try and pick a woman up. Talk to them. Talk to a woman like you talk to your friend Bob. Assuming Bob is exactly the same as you as in a white cis hetero man. Oh, sorry, you don't like the term cis. Yeah. How about that for an exercise? Talk to a woman the same way you talk to a man. Don't try and hit on her. Don't even think about any kind of sexual power play. Talk to them like a person. Don't even talk to them like that. Talk to them like a person. You'll find that they are pretty cool. They're just like you. And in some ways, they're just like you in the negative ways. Some women are bitches, for lack of a better word. Guess what? Some men are bitches too. Some people are assholes. Men can be assholes, women can be assholes. We're all kind of assholes. But we also have the capacity to be good people. Don't dismiss a person just because they don't look exactly like you in the mirror. Talk to people of different cultures, different races, even different religions, different ideologies. For the most part, you'll agree with them on practically everything. Some people you won't. Some people are going to be flat out people you don't want to associate with. And that's fine. Don't associate with them. But don't go around saying all these women are bitches because they don't want to fuck me. Because guess what? With that attitude, nobody wants to fuck you. People are complex. People aren't easy. People have weird issues. People will see the world in a different perspective than you, and that's fine. Like, people might say, look at the world as black and white, but some people might look at the world as white and black. See what I'm getting at? And that's a Star Trek reference, by the way. It's easy to dismiss someone who doesn't agree with you. It's harder to look at them from the point of view. And, I can easily look at things from the point of view of some of these gating assholes, because I kind of was a gating asshole at some point. I haven't been for fucking years. I haven't been for probably since I was a fucking teenager. I also didn't have the internet to go out on being a raging asshole. I should be an incel. I used to think like some of those incels. That was a long time ago, and I realized how toxic that mentality is. The same mentality with incels, the same mentality as a comics gator, the same mentality as a gay and gator. Not necessarily all about the same thing, but it's the same mentality. I deserve X. If you say no, you're a problem. Nobody deserves to give you anything. The only thing you deserve is a fair go. We all deserve to be treated equally. We all deserve the same chances, regardless of our skin color, our build, our height, our gender, our sex. Yes, they're two separate things. Our hair color, our eyebrows, even if you change the color of your hair, if you have tattoos, we all deserve the same equal chance. At the end of the day, I don't even want to say fuck Comic-Gate. That's not going to do anything. I even say we should respect Comics-Gate. We should learn from Comics-Gate. No, we don't. We know who they are. We know their techniques. We also know kind of why they're doing this. Part of me just says we should just ignore them. It's not going to go away though. We've got our champions. We've got people who are fighting Comics-Gate. I don't think it's just Comics-Gate though. I think there's an ingrained issue with toxicity in nerd culture, and it is predominantly masculine. What saddens me is that one of the things comics are really good at is morality tales. Comics are our modern mythology. Comics are a great way, especially teaching young kids, what is good morals. As a kid, I loved Batman. And I think Batman's great for children. You know, in many ways, he's kind of what a kid likes. He's a guy that's very proactive. He beats people up. Funny enough, I just realized Batman's toxic masculinity. There's no repercussions to what Batman does in anything. People love pointing out the sociopathic nature of Batman, and people routinely dismiss it like, oh, you're just jumping to conclusions. But Batman is a very simplistic hero, and that's probably really good for children. Teach them the very simple basis of being a hero. But Batman's not really that good a hero, is he? I mean, he doesn't target systematic injustices. Well, basically no hero really does, except maybe the Punisher. But he does it wrong. Batman beats up thugs for stealing purses, all in a really perverted way of justice. And it can be argued that Batman is making things worse in Gotham. I love the idea because it makes a lot more sense when you put it through a lens that Batman's activities are kind of terrible. Bruce Wayne is almost the anti-capitalist of our reality. You look at all the billionaires, a lot of them claim to be doing good stuff, but they're not really. You look at all those people in politics who got billions in the bank and all they're doing is changing the world to make themselves richer. Batman is this billionaire who puts on tights and fights a never-ending battle against crime that doesn't do anything. It probably leads to more crime. He doesn't even incapacitate his enemies long enough. That's also partly due to the serialization nature of the comic books industry, because you get a good villain, you want to keep bringing them back. It's the whole thing of the Joker. The original comic book, Joker gets killed. He was such an interesting villain, they keep bringing him back. But if you look at the bigger picture, and this is what a lot of people love to do now with Batman, oh, he's the best hero, he's the guy we should be aspiring to. The guy we should be aspiring to is the blue guy in the red cape, because he is an inspirational character. And this is one of the reasons I really hate Zack Snyder's take on it, but we won't go into that. Superman is also a very simplistic hero on the surface, but he's also a character that says, you can be a hero because all you need to do is the simple things. Okay, Batman would never save a kitten from a tree unless it was Selena Kyle. That's because he wants pussy. I'm cutting that out. It's important for Superman to be the guy that will save the world. He will punch up the big robots, and then afterwards, on the way home, he'll save the kitten from a tree. That tells you more about his morality than practically anything else. He's the guy with all this power, and he will do the small things. There's things that we can do. If anything, probably some of the bad storytelling is when we rely on Superman to solve all our ills. And some of the great comics that even explore that. You know, why do we need a Superman? But also some of the good comics go, this is why. It's the counter thesis to that argument. Why do we need a Superman? This is why we need a Superman. And this is something that really bothers me about the current thing of like, oh, Superman's too vanilla. Superman's too plain. But sometimes we need that. The world's complicated. I said that at the beginning. We're all weird, complicated people. Sometimes we need a simple hero. And you know what? Let's say, for the sake of argument, the comic gators are right. We do need a hero that isn't all about these weird, political, complicated things. So that's why we have a Superman. Superman could be the guy who just saves everyone, regardless of the political stuff. Problem is with that, an apolitical statement is still a political statement. Superman saving people for no real political reason is still a political thing. But we'll digress. They aren't talking about, we don't want the politics in comics. They want their politics in comics. They want the asshole super uber mensch who takes no prisoners, thumps all the people and fucks all the women. They don't want women to have a voice because that means they're less of a fucking prop. They don't want minorities because the minorities are the bad people. I'm not talking about minorities as specifically in a race, but I'm talking about the other, which of course can encapsulate everything. But they don't want the other to be represented because that makes the other no longer a villain. They're no longer something that can be easily hit or abused or punched or taken down because for no other reason than they're the evil thing. And the funny thing is, we've had plenty of other people become heroes. And what happens? We developed more bad guys. We always develop more bad guys. It's easy. And if you want to, there's literally a comic book of Green Lantern and Green Arrow. Not that one. It's not a bad writing, but it's a kind of shit idea because, and they bring it up in the comic. A guy tries to start a race riot in New York by pitting a white guy against a black guy. It was the same guy, split up. It makes no sense. But then Purple Skin, was it purple or green? I can't remember. It wasn't Jade, it was Jon Stewart's wife at the time. It's like going, this is stupid. I am literally an alien living in New York. Why are you pandering to racists who want to talk about the difference between black and white? There's a green-skinned chick over there. Superman's from a different planet. Why is this racism a thing? That message elevates everything that was terrible about comics, making those comics great. The plot is stupid. It really, really was. And I like the writers and that on that. I like those comics. The plot was stupid, but it made a fantastic point. Oh, I'm sorry, that was what? Let me think, 1995. So that was almost 25 years ago? Yeah. So politics have never been in comics. I've rambled on enough. I really should have finished this 10 minutes ago, but kind of that's the point, isn't it? I'm not writing off a script. I'm going by research. I'm going by stuff in my head. These things turn up. Maybe we can all learn to live with each other a little bit more nicely. Maybe we can stop being dicks on the internet and just for brownie points get with other assholes. It bothers me that we have these common interests, these things that teach us to be good people. And yet people are still shitty about them. There's still terrible comics written by terrible people trying to make us be terrible. Frank Miller. But when the majority of our medium, and this is not just comic books, this is movies, this is music, this is art, this is literature, this is video games. When these things are teaching us to try and be a good person, and these people are ignoring that because they just want to focus on their hate, it makes you second question these things. You go, am I missing something here? Why is all these people taking this thing of positivity and turning it into hate? And that is ultimately where I can't get behind all this stuff. especially with regards to toxic masculinity. I'm going to say this openly online now. I always freely admit that I cry like a baby when I watch Spider-Man 2. The train scene is the thing that kills me every time. I just watched it again for the first time in a few years, and I'm bawling like a baby when Spidey is sacrificing himself for a group, for a train. See, that's positive masculinity. The hero sacrifices himself. He knows there's a good chance he's not going to survive. He also knows that the love of his life is currently captured by an insane madman with freaking metal tentacles. But he still sacrifices himself to try and stop a train full of people from dying. And the moment where, I always shit on Snyder for his Christ allegories, but the moment when pretty much Spider-Man is unconscious and he's being lifted through the train, and there's that kind of, it's almost that kind of messiahistic imagery as he's being passed along. I'm trying not to ball up here, and like they put him down, and one of them goes, "Christ, he's just a kid." And Pete wakes up. He doesn't have his mask on. And that moment where he just goes, "Holy crap, I'm unmasked in public, surrounded by all these people." And they go, "Don't worry, we'll keep your secret safe." It's probably one of the most beautiful moments in a superhero movie. Probably one of the most beautiful moments in any kind of movie. And Peter just says, just like, "Thank you." What a time for the camera to go. And this is how much of a hero Peter is. Completely wrecked. The people stand up for him. But even he knows, no, you can't fight this fight. It's all done with actions, no words. You can clearly see Peter is exhausted. And he's like, no, I have to do this. That is the best hero moment in the movie. It's not about all those punches he landed on Dr. Octopus. It's not even about Dr. Octopus being defeated by Spider-Man. And that's the other better thing. The end of Spider-Man 2, it's not about Spider-Man defeating the villain by punching him into submission. Spider-Man defeats Dr. Octopus by removing the mask, appealing to him as Peter Parker to Otto Octavius to say, what you're doing is wrong, and trying to get through to that person through the monster. And he doesn't even offer any resistance when the tentacle comes and grabs him through the throat. That's the hero. This isn't, Superman breaking Zod's neck. This isn't Batman just beating up the Joker and then killing him by throwing him off a building with a gargoyle attached to his leg. I know it was off an helicopter, but point still stands. This isn't even like the Avengers, beating up Loki, stopping the Sky Portal. This is a true heroic moment that's not solved by violence. That's more heroic. I love Into the Spider-Verse, but essentially that movie resolves by Miles beating up the Kingpin. It works well in that movie. That is actually a very satisfactory ending for that plot line. Miles solves a problem by solving it with the person who made the problem. It solves the character arc. But as a heroic moment, Peter stopping Dr. Octavius is a much better character beat for a hero than Spider-Man beating up Dr. Octopus. If you disagree with me, that's toxic masculinity right there. No. The violence is the way to solve things. No, it isn't. And this is ultimately where I'm going to end this. Because going back to the masculinity thing, we always see these traits of masculinity as singularly focused to males, or masculinity. Being bold is not a genetic trait that only one sex can do. Women can be bold, women can be courageous, women can be all these things. I guess I fall more on the egalitarian side of things. I support feminism because I do agree that we have this inequality that we need to resolve between the two genders and the two sexes, because gender is the social construct, sex is the physical one, and they both tie together and are completely separate. Men can be weak. They can cry. They need to sometimes cry. They need to be emotional. They can't just keep it built in. It can't just say that's a women exclusive thing. This is a men thing. This is a women thing. All we men here can only be tough and strong, and the women are weak. We're kind of all the same in those aspects. Our genitals might be different. Our bone structures might be different. Our hormones might be different. But that's not going to excuse anyone, because let's face it, Men can have estrogen too. Men have estrogen. Women have testosterone. These arguments are moot. We need to get past this. We really do. I know this is not going to be, anyone's not going to see this. I mean, let's face it, I'm going to put this on YouTube. It might get a couple of views. That's about it. Hell, this might explode. This might reach 1,000 people. I get downvoted 10,000 times because I dared to say toxic masculinity is a bad thing. Which it is, but toxic masculinity is not being able to cry. Toxic masculinity is saying, no, you should not cry. And that's a terrible thing, isn't it? To say, you can't cry? That's a horrible thing to say to a person. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to have a weakness. You're not allowed to have an emotion? Man, that's kind of messed up. I know I've rambled a bit. This is a train of thought. Please, like, share and subscribe and all that sort of stuff. I hate handing on downer. How about, well, I'm wearing a silly hat because I figured, if people are going to get pissed off about me calling out toxic masculinity, I might as well show a symbol of a toxic fan base. That and also, I really like this Mr. Meeseeks cap. I wear it all the time when I'm at my computer. Kind of proves the point, isn't it? Your fan bases can only be as good as you cultivate it. I don't think Rick and Morty has deliberately cultivated a toxic fan base. I just think it attracts a lot of toxic idiots because they see Rick as the alpha male, the guy who can do no wrong, where contextually in the show, Rick is an asshole, and an almost irredeemable asshole. I think the show should point that out more often. It can still be the uber genius that's technically right, but when he treats people like shit, and even Morty calls him out on it. But people forget Morty calling out Rick for being an asshole, and just remember Rick as being the genius. This is why the Szechuan sauce thing really got to me. And Pickle Rick especially. I can go into a whole rant about why I think Pickle Rick's a fucking mean, tropey shit. People forget that Szechuan sauce was a misdirect. This was Rick using his knowledge that he was stuck in the simulation to try and distract the aliens who are trying to get his mind, get him to do stuff. Szechuan sauce had nothing to do with the plot. You look at them in the episode, Rick doesn't engage with Szechuan sauce at all. He's talking about his family. He's going into his past. But fuck that. I'm going to go and have a fucking tanty because McDonald's didn't supply enough of the fucking sauce I've never touched before in my life, but because Rick and Morty said it was good, I have to have some. Yeah, I stopped watching Rick and Morty a long time ago because... I'm sorry, your fan base is crap.